Hey kids, it's time for story time with Uncle Jeremy!
Yay!
Hey everybody, and welcome to Story Time with Uncle Jeremy. I honestly couldn't think of a better title for this because it was a new thing that I just discovered, I want to say like 4 or 5 days ago in a podcast community that I'm part of on Facebook. And I thought it was a really neat idea. This idea of the National Podcast Post Month, meaning you do a podcast every day for 30 days in November. So it's like Podvember. I guess it doesn't roll off your tongue like Napod Pomo. And what the heck? I'm going to call it Podvember. Even though I will hashtag NapodPoMo, because that's what everybody else is doing. And, you know, that's basically what I am going to do so I get more hits. Or whatever the kids are calling it. Downloads, something, going viral. I don't remember. But anyway, my name is Jeremy. I'm the host of the Because I Said So podcast with my sons, which will be coming back for season 2 this week as a part of Napod Pomo? Podvember. It sounds much better. It's easier to say. As a part of Podvember, I'm bringing back for season 2 Because I Said So with my sons. And I'm going to bring back Mind the Gaps, my other pop culture podcast, alongside this. So that's exciting. I'll be podcasting again now that life has sort of settled down a little bit. And that'll be fun. So I'm looking forward to Napod Pomo. Podvember. I'm looking forward to Podvember. I've got everything mapped out, and it'll be fun. And you're probably wondering, what the heck is a Napod Pomo? Heck, I wondered what that was when I saw it on this Facebook community I'm a part of. Well, why don't I take a moment to tell you? The best place to find out what Napod Pomo is not my podcast, because I don't know anything about it. Like I said, I just found out about it a couple days ago. Anyway, basically what Napod Pomo is 30 days of podcasting beginning on November 1st and going through the whole month. That's why I called it Podvember. 30 days straight. Like, no days off. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I honestly don't know. And there's no restrictions, no rules. It's just a time for podcasters like myself to challenge myself. So that's what I'm doing. I'm challenging myself to record 30 podcasts over 30 days. Now, this doesn't mean these podcasts are going to be 30 minutes, an hour, 2-hour extravaganzas. Nobody has time for that. So what I'm doing is I'm going to compress them and do short, brief story time most of the time. That's why I'm calling this story time. I'm going to tell stories of something in my life or something that happened in the past or something that happened that day or whatever. And I'll sort of freestyle. But for the most part, I have a mapped out schedule of what I'm going to do every day. And I'm going to try to do it. You might be wondering also, is this a ripoff of NaNoWriMo? Or National Novel Writing Month? Probably. I mean, NaNoWriMo has been going on forever. In fact, I've tried it twice and failed. And I'm probably going to try this, and chances are I might fail at it. But I'll never know if I don't try, which is why I'm doing Podvember. That's why I'm doing Podvember, is to see if I fail at it. And if I fail at it, oh well, I'll delete the RSS feed and no one will remember. That'll be awesome, right? Yeah. Anyway, it's probably going to suck. Alright, I'm not going to promise you that this is going to be the greatest entertainment ever. I'd like to think it is. I'd like to think it's pretty funny. I'd like to think I'm pretty entertaining. But you never know. It could suck. But included in those days are going to be great shows, including my sons. Because I said so. Because people seem to like that one. And some people seem to like the Mind the Gaps show that I do. So that's going to be fun to do as well. So stick around for Story Time with Uncle Jeremy. And I'm going to talk about Halloween. to talk about Halloween because I'm actually recording this on Halloween so it can be released on November 1st. So we're going to talk about Halloween because that's what happened today. Today is Halloween. To be honest with you, for most of my adult life, I was never a fan of Halloween. I worked with a youth center, so we had some youth events around Halloween where I just load kids up with candy and tell them they don't have to really go trick-or-treating because, to be honest with you, this is an old joke. People have been saying it for years, but we tell kids never to take candy from strangers, but there's one day where we actually have the kids go to strangers' houses and ask them for candy. So it's a little hypocritical, at least in my mind. But that's an old joke. That's not my joke. I stole that from somebody. I don't know who. It's as old as the day is long. But anyway, I never really was a fan of Halloween as an adult. As a kid, I kind of dug it. I mean, it was fun, but I just didn't like it as an adult. I worked in restaurants and waited tables on Halloween, which was kind of obnoxious because people would come dressed up and get drunk. And I guess grown-ups like to celebrate Halloween, and that's okay. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to judge you if you like Halloween as an adult. Some people treat Halloween like their Christmas, and that's okay. No judgment here. But for me, never was a fan of Halloween, and I sort of eased into it from kid to kid. See, I have 4 children. My first child, who is now 16, mind you, I don't think he went trick-or-treating until he was like 8 years old. And that was when he had a little brother. And so we eased into it. And now we've pretty much gone trick-or-treating every year since then. And I've brought the kids along. But what's weird is when I end up walking around with the kids, because tonight, for instance, my dear wife, my dear bride, my long-suffering wife has to work tonight. So I took it upon myself to walk the children around along with my now 16-year-old son to get candy. I kind of felt like I was the ringleader in that gang of orphans you read about in the Dickens books. You know, Charles Dickens always had that world of, you know, that English 19th century England where orphans were used by one scheming guy to con people out of money. Yeah, you know, it's like that, or sort of like the guys, the bad guys in Slumdog Millionaire that have the kids kind of scam people out of money in India. So I kind of feel like one of those guys, because really what we're doing as parents now is we're sending our kids out to get candy, not for themselves, but for us. And so I'm walking around with my kids. My youngest ones, the daughters, are age 6 and 4. And we're walking around getting candy. And at one point, my dear 4-year-old, she says to me, "Daddy, they gave me my favorite candy." And I said, "That's great, sweetheart. What's your favorite candy? Because I'll make sure not to eat it when I'm digging through your bag later." Because that's pretty much all I do. You know, they get the candy, and it's a free-for-all or a dictatorship. They don't realize that their candy's going to get eaten eventually, but I made them do all the work. However, I did carry my youngest, her bag around for half the night. So I kind of earned it a little bit, but that's besides the point. I do have some Halloween memories as a kid. There's not a lot of memories back there. I've repressed them all. So there's some good ones. So I have a really, really funny Halloween story about an unfortunate Halloween costume. See, I grew up poor. Really poor. White trash poor, right? And we would get costumes. They were always those cheap ones that had like the smock that was basically the same texture of a garbage bag. And they had these plastic masks and this rubber band that maybe lasted like 4 houses and would break. And you put the mask on and the mask was always flimsy. But those were our costumes when we were really young. But eventually we started to make our own costumes because we didn't want to go out and spend the money. And we already didn't have the money. I don't know. But anyway, my mom would basically help us make our costumes. And I would get a little, as I got older, I would make mine scarier. I had like a Freddy Krueger glove and a mask, and I'd make fake blood. I'd be all scary and stuff. And one year, I mean, the easiest costume of all, if you're a poor kid, is a hobo. Yeah, that's right. All you need is like a little bit of makeup, some shabby clothes, which you already have, because, hello, you're poor. and then you have a stick, and you make a little bindle. I think that's what they call it, a bindle. I could be wrong. I'm not going to look it up because it'll slow down the story. But anyway, dressing as a hobo, super easy. I think I was a hobo like 4 years in a row. It was awesome. Well, anyway, one year my brother begged to be a ghost. He was like 9 years old. He wanted to be a ghost so bad. And my mother was like, okay, you could be a ghost. And he said, but Mom, I don't really want to drag a sheet around. And in fact, my mom probably said, we only have like one white sheet for 6 beds. So I don't want you to use the white sheet and run around and cut holes in it for your eyes. So my mother, who was a seamstress, yep, she was a seamstress. She worked in an underwear factory. And I ain't kidding. That sounds like a joke. I wish it was. She worked in an underwear factory where she sewed long johns. That's what she did all day. It was a sweatshop. And it was always hot. Didn't matter what time of year. It always was like 1,000 degrees in there. I remember going in there, getting lunch, and getting money for lunch from my mom because it was across the street from the school, and getting covered in lint and nastiness and just sweat, no matter what time of year it was. It was awful. So anyway, my mother was a seamstress, and she was like, I'll make you a costume. And now, granted, my mother, she was not all that bright. All right, God rest her soul. She's not really dead, but God love her. She wanted to make my brother a costume, and she didn't really know about what she was doing. But let me tell you, this was an unfortunate Halloween costume. She sewed him this nice white robe, like with head could stick out of it, and arms and stuff, and it looked like a choir robe, but it was all white. I think she made it out of like cheap fabric, maybe thrown away from the underwear factory for all I know. I don't remember. But anyway, she made this nice robe that was all white, and it had a hole for his head. It looked like a choir robe, but it was pure white. Now, a ghost, you think the next step maybe instead of putting a hat on, you would maybe paint his face up white or something, make him ghostly white. But no, my mother, the seamstress, she had a little extra fabric. So she made him a hood. And this hood pointed up to a point, and it had his eyes cut out. And I didn't realize this until I was a little bit older. But as my brother would walk around in Halloween in this white robe with this peaked cone hat with the eyes cut out in our small rural town, thankfully, we didn't have any African American people in our town. Because, I'm sorry, my brother looked like the littlest Klan member. He's running around with this white robe with this pointy head, and he's getting candy. And in fact, maybe the guys with the Confederate flags threw him an extra, like, Three Musketeers bar or something. Maybe they only served white chocolate. I don't remember. But maybe he got extra candy from the racists up there. But he was running around in what looked like a miniature Klan robe, and he thought he was a ghost. Yeah. That was fun, wasn't it? Yeah, it was real fun. I think I was walking around in my Freddy Krueger mask. That might have been the last time I ever trick-or-treated when I was a kid. And it could be the reason I didn't like it as an adult. Probably not, because, it's a lot of work going out trick-or-treating. I should know. I did it with 4 kids. Thanks for listening to Story Time with Uncle Jeremy. We'll be back tomorrow with something fun, I think. I have to look at my schedule. But there we go. 1 of 30 done. Podcast. Podvember. Napod Pomo. Podvember. I don't know. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. And if you want to listen to me again, just check out the feed. And I'll be back tomorrow.